The first time I visited Taiwan was 1990, and that was 1 year after Tiananmen, 1 year after that I was in exile. I was basically living in the U.S. at that time. So Taiwan, in my mind, was pretty much very limited. First of all, we know very little about Taiwan. The little we know mostly come from propaganda and then some Chinese Communist education. So the first time already,
Was it the Wild Lily movement back then?
Yes, I came afterward. I came in late October. So the movement, the Wild Lily movement was already achieved its goal, and then the Li Denghui gave in to the condition that students' Wild Lily movement, the student movement put forward. So it's a time that Taiwan began a major change into democracy. That was 1990. But of course I was only visiting. I was invited to the parliament, and KMT still a big deal. There were oppositions, but opposition party were more playing a role as at that time was still a challenger coming up, growing. They have about like 20% of the seat in the parliament, which is already quite amazing. And after 1990, I came to Taiwan every year. Until 1996, I finally made the decision to move here. And the 90s was fascinating already. And then by the year 1999, I got my full citizenship here in Taiwan, which means I could vote, which I did. And then that was my first time take part in a democratic election. And then it's a presidential election in Taiwan. And then also the first time Taiwan has a party shift. The first time people democratically elected the KMT out, the authoritarian party out of the power in the year 2000. Very happy to be here and then be part of the process. Witnessed that, then fascinated. And then also we're thinking what a dramatic change it has been in the last 10 years. Little did I know the coming 10 and 20 years were even more dramatic or even more fascinating. I was a radio talk show host at that time in a radio station in central Taiwan. I wanted to first talk about culture, what I know about mainland China, making comparison with Taiwan. And since something like that, I think it might attract some interest from the general audience. But immediately, because the talk show was interactive, so the people calling in, that talk show became very political. And then I myself, position myself as a newcomer, an observant. Before you know, I'm already became a strong political critic and opinion leader. And later on, even a very celebrated one. For instance, the columns I write always hit really high numbers, and then when I television talk show, I get good ratings, things like that. So my involved in the Taiwan society was, of course, incremental. Was at the very beginning I was just an observant, and later on I became an activist. I even took part in the 2006 student movement, and then when 2014, when the Sunflower movement took place, I was giving a speech at that night in Tsinghua University, and then I was a little surprised of the low turnout. I mean, I still had a full house, but then a lot of students says, teacher, we want to listen to your lecture speech, but many of our classmates are now in legislative yuan. They're occupying legislative yuan. I was so excited. I remember I hired a taxi and drive me directly from where I was giving speech to legislative yuan that evening. And then the taxi driver even gave me a hat off because He thought I was a student, I was a teacher going there to help out my students there. So you can sense the environment at that time. Taiwan have grown into a full-fledged democracy. We ordinary people, without knowing the true demand or political aspect of the student movement, have already expressed very strong support for anything when the students decided to take some action to have a political movement, and people automatically basically thought it's a good idea. So at the end of March in 2014, when 2 weeks into the student movement, students organized a major demonstration in Beijing. Students organized a major demonstration in Taipei City. 500,000 people turned out to support them. So that was one of the highest number of the people's demonstration in the city of Taipei. So I would say, and then also I'm quite honored to be there to give the students some pep talks. And I remember one sentence that I said on the podium, and then it was highly repeated by the students later, is that I told the youth, the students occupied the legislative yuan, the parliament. And then I told them it is honorable to step up in a critical time. So that sentence was widely received as a redemption for the students who didn't know, who were not 100% sure what they were doing. And then an old comer, a former student leader for 2 decades ago, came over and told those young kids that you were doing right is something quite well received by them, I was told.
Can you compare when you supported the students after the 2004 election at actually right here at Chiang-Kai-shek Memorial Hall, and they were like fasting, remember that?
Which year?
After the presidential election in 2004.
Yeah.
And there were the protests of the election.
Yes,
there
yes,
were
yes.
students and they were fasting, and then you came and you supported them. So
Yes.
like, can you compare and contrast?
Well, first of all, they're similar. They're students expressing their concern of the political situation. In 2004, the incumbent was already Democratic Progressive Party. And then at that time, the year 2004 is one of the probably most polarized time in the modern Taiwan society, where the incumbent president seeking re-election really mobilized nationalist sentiment. When we say nationalism, it's Taiwan, it's within Taiwan, so it's not about Taiwan versus China. It's Hokkien versus what I call mainland newcomers who merged to Taiwan in 1949. So it has created a very split, wounded, self-conflicted a society. Many intellectuals, opinion leaders have expressed very strong concern for what the government is doing. Students who sat down in the Chiang-Kai-shek Memorial was coherent with what I was as an opinion leader, as a political commentator, have been criticizing the government of. So that's why naturally I joined it. And then that's the same case in 10 years later, the Sunflower Movement. But this time incumbent is the nationalist, the KMT, who believes leaning toward China into the economic way. The biggest problem that triggered the movement was that service and trade agreement between Taiwan and China, that the incumbent wants to, the political party wants to, the ruling party wants to speed it through the parliament, which will be very problematic. Service and trade, including many things like television production, film production, publications, all these things. And if Taiwan and China share an overall trade agreement, the Taiwanese production houses or books publications will be attracted and influenced by a mass China market. And then we will step into that self-censorship that Hong Kong have seen in the past 20 years. So we think stopping that service and trade agreement with mainland China is a very important protection mechanism for Taiwan's democracy, freedom of expression.
Can we compare CSSTA and ECFA? Like, how should we look at these two things? Like, is ECFA only about trade and about?
Well, I'm not an expert on economy, but I know one thing. In the last 3-4 decades, the world have been highly depending on China's economic power, economic engineering power. And then the result, we're seeing it, that the world, the Chinese regime hold the world hostage by using their own market, their own, trading power. So anything that make Taiwan lean too much to mainland China is automatically dangerous, and we're learning that. The whole world is learning that today, and withdrawing from that independence to China. Well, there are different trade agreements, and then of course business people wants to take advantage of China, come to trade, come to market. But we should also know the danger of that, and then we haven't in the last 3 years. China using its during the pandemic time even, China using its economic power control, mask export, respiratory assistant equipment, medical equipment, all these things, using that to force the world to accept its political agenda. That is something Taiwan have seen and protected ourselves. Basically, after World War II, the United States have led the world entering into a platform, a global order, world order that is liberal democracy and combined with global capitalism. And then naively, they made a delusion, they made an assumption that trading with China will lure China into that world order that will give birth to the Chinese capitalism, will give birth to the Chinese middle class, will give birth to the Chinese civil society, will eventually give birth to democracy in China. That delusion is very naive. And then the second delusion is like, well, they know they're trading, they're engaging with this authoritarian regime, which will have consequences, and then it can be pretty bad. You're basically enabling a human rights abuser. But the world thought, okay, the consequences will be limited within the border of China, and then the rest of the world in the longer run will benefit from it. This is also a delusion that is, at best, I call it selfish. And then the third delusion is the worst, is that the world think, US-led Western democracy have thought that if they keep dealing with the Chinese Communist regime, they will make the Chinese Communist regime a responsible stakeholder in this world order. So that's probably the same idea where Taiwanese governments think we need to do more business with China. By doing so, we can change China. But that delusion, by keep doing business, we can change the Chinese Communist regime, is downright stupid. There is no other word that I can find to describe. And the worst of all, they are all delusions, and then they have been proven wrong. And then it took quite a tool to recognize. I think the bravery of Hong Kong people have helped the world to realize that this is not a responsible stakeholder in the world order that we want to lure them into, and then it's impossible. So same lesson for the world and Taiwan. And then I think the students' movement almost 10 years ago have made a very good decision helping Taiwan from falling to the position that leaning into depending on China too much. Now Taiwan can maintain its autonomy, economic autonomy. In great deal, we need to thank the Sunflower Student Movement.
After 2016, the percentage of trade with mainland China plus Hong Kong is around like 50% now, so it actually increased. Is this a concern, or is that just numbers?
The Chinese economic entity, the Chinese economy, in a large scale, have changed from Chinese owned into, for instance, many of them are Taiwanese owned, or Western world owned. So the trade with China, also including the 50% number you have mentioned, also including the Taiwanese corporation went to China and opened a factory and sold back to Taiwan. So the number, but we can see one thing is the political dependency is not there. That's good. That's one thing we are happy about. We do want world trade, of course. Sometimes we need to implement protectionism. But in a larger picture, we know the world is shrinking into a village, and then trade is essential. But we should not repeat the mistake that we believe the Chinese regime will not use their economy hold the world hostage. They do. They will. They do, and they will continue. And it's time to put on more protection mechanism, especially when it comes to like those factors, trade that involves freedom of expression, or many other aspects of democracy. United States have decided to, when the President Biden mentioned the supply chain is a matter of national security and high tech, there are so many strong barriers that U.S. have decided to impose to China. The Wall Street is also, based on that, is contemplating a concept called shorting China. So the world is changing. When U.S. led the wrong engagement policy with China 30, 40 years ago, the world had to follow. And then when U.S. is changing that direction, I think the world will also follow. And then in this changing of directions, I see, other than U.S. is making this clear idea, Japan was a pioneer, and then I think Taiwan was also kept a very cool head in the last 10 years.
One concern that someone mentioned to me at that time in 2014 was that, we don't want to work for like a mainland company. We don't want to have like a mainland boss. It's a matter of self-respect. And because I had already started going into mainland China business regularly. I mean, I saw a lot of my friends move to Shanghai and stuff like that. So I was thinking but it's not a problem for them to work for a mainland boss. But that's in mainland China. When a Taiwanese person goes over there because employee over there, that's one thing. But when it's over in Taiwan, I think it changes a little bit because it's them investing over here. So
does it? I don't know that. Well, during Ma Ying-jeou period, Ma Ying-jeou administration, Taiwan opened the border for mainlanders to come as a tourist. So the tourist industry have boomed here in Taiwan for them, but also many of the hotels, bus companies, things like that, they are opened by Chinese investors. Taiwan is a very merchant mentality society. I don't really see the pride, the ego will play in such a big part for Taiwanese people refuse to work for a Chinese corporation. I don't see that as really a big problem. If Lenovo open a company, open a big factory here in Taiwan, I don't think any Taiwanese will say, I don't want to work for them. Yes, no, I don't see what you're seeing, so I probably am not quite aware of.
Well, that was just one person's opinion, which I thought was just kind of prideful. You know, because I talked to more people, and I was like, would this really be a problem if the salary was maybe 20% higher? And
I don't think it's going to be a problem. Taiwanese are hard workers, and then also in the field of trade, there is a very good code of ethic that Taiwanese people follow. It doesn't include, I don't want to work for an employer from certain country.
I was a buyer for a U.S. company, but they knew I was from Taiwan, and so naturally the subject would come up and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt like whenever they talked about that, it was always very I mean, there was a wide range of things they said, but it was kind of like authoritative kind of a thing, and like there was always like some kind of remark that has to be made. You know, everyone's got like an opinion about the situation, and I would just be like, I'm just here to purchase, so like I don't really want to, you know, I didn't.
I haven't been back to China for so long. I guess I'm really not qualified to answer this.
No. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking for a response from you, but that experience from like 2014 to 2017, after a period of time, like hearing some of the things they said, like also some of the military threats were included too, you know, because there was this one guy that like had a brother in the military. He actually had two brothers, one on PLA side and one on Taiwan side, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Right? So like.
It made them a good subject for interview, I guess.
Oh no, I don't think that would be a good idea. But he was just like telling me about some of like the weapons they have pointed at Taiwan and stuff like that, and I was like going like, this sounds like, I mean, he wasn't like threatening me personally, but it was just like, oh, by the way, we can like kill you at any moment, but we're not gonna do that because we're the good guys, you know, like, and then like I was just like, why would you say something like that to me? But it was just, I kind of interpreted it as like, don't forget who's really in charge in the situation. It's more like an ego thing. It's not like I really want to kill you, but because I'm not killing you, that's.
I talk to those people all the time on social media, and then one of the answers I always give them is like, you really need to know, like we're talking about liberating Taiwan, things like we can do this, and I was like, one of my responses, you know, like, you really need to know you are totally insignificant when it comes to making that decision, invading Taiwan or not, because you are a subject in a totalitarian regime where people in the democracy have a say. You don't. So your threat is so empty, and then I suggest you go to Zhongnanhai, outside of Zhongnanhai, protest against Xi Jinping for not liberating Taiwan sooner. So they have to face the like of me dressing them down. So I think that's what you should do. I mean, otherwise you are talking to me here and then I'm just dressing you down. And then I'm telling you, you are so insignificant. How do you like that? So it was my general answer to those people who keep saying, we're going to liberate you.
No, he wasn't talking about liberation. He was just talking about killing.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
that's horrible.
Like
Same idea. Who's in charge?
Yeah.
He's not in charge. That's the problem. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
So if any Chinese wants to tell me China is in charge, well, that's Xi Jinping, not you. You are insignificant.
Okay.
So you are making an empty threat. Representing Xi Jinping on behalf of it's kind of funny, it's ridiculous.
That guy's not in the
Not even, I mean, the point is China is not a democracy. People don't have say. That's the point I want to make. Here in Taiwan, do we go to a war defending ourselves or not? People do have a say. That's the difference. That's the point I want to make. No, my response is like, it's dangerous to depend on China's economy, trade, market. All these things dangerous. And then that was my response.
Okay, but I was just saying that like because of these experiences I had, that I was like I sort of like changed my mind on like whether that would really be a good idea, because in the beginning I was just sort of like focused on we need investment in Taiwan, we need money, you know. Otherwise people keep complaining about stagnant wages, and then now we have the chance to get this investment and it's like we're turning it down because it's coming from over there. But then I didn't think that much about what would be the actual consequences of that.
Yeah, it's a political reason, not ego, not ego, not nationalistic, but the political reason is very genuine, it's very real. China take their, economic power against you on the political agenda. I mean, like the nationalism going on in China. If there is something happening in Japan, a little dispute with Japan, they hit people's Japan-made automobile. I mean, it's like that's kind of a country we're dealing with. Of course, it's dangerous to get there.
Okay. Do we have to take into account the nation's principles that's investing in Taiwan? Like, for example, never mind China. What if you compare South Korea to North Korea? Would you say South Korea is okay because similar principles and North Korea is not okay? Or both are okay because money is money?
No, money, well, that's the whole point I was trying to make is the world was under that kind of assumption. The money is money. And then to the Chinese regime, money is never really just money. Money is weapon. So do you want to weaponize your adversary as someone who threatened to overtake you, and then at any given time have 1,000 missiles pointing at you? The answer is yes.
Okay, but North Korea is not directly threatening Taiwan, right? So, like, I just mean like in terms of like the principle of the people investing in your nation. If they believe in one party authoritarian system and they are the employers, like what kind of impact does that have on the employees when the employees are coming from a multi-party democracy? Doesn't that create like a conflict of interest?
Of course, I know what China's invest is going to, what kind of impact it's going to have to Taiwan. I don't know North Korea's impact to investment to Taiwan. That probably doesn't compare. Probably a South Korean national can answer that question better. Do we want to open our trade relation with North Korea because money is money? Money is not money. And to the Chinese regime, it's not money. It's not just money. When it is a weapon that they can use against Taiwan. It's a weapon they can use against Japan. It's a weapon they can use against the United States, and Europe, Australia, or like. North Korea doesn't really have that strong power when using weaponized little investment they have. I don't know any investment that North Korea has.
Just an example.
Yeah. So, but of course, it's all related. So when Taiwan look at investments, they should know one thing, that this investment from China is dangerous. Investment from North Korea is maybe not as dangerous, but from China is. That's something Taiwanese need to know.
Okay, so now that we have the upcoming election, and Koenza has brought up CSSTA, that he tried to say maybe we should bring that back in order to get more Pambloo support, right? But what would you, if let's say that we have all the candidates in front of you, like, and do you think it would be relevant questions like, if you get elected, would you bring that back? Like, do you think that this is something that needs to be cleared up before the election, before people vote?
Absolutely. I mean, if you are going to be the president for the next 4 years, what is your answer or solution to the danger I was talking about, that linking trade with politics? Do you have an answer? That would be my question to all candidates. so far, I don't think Ko Wen-je or Hou You-yi or anybody or Terry Gou has any answers. And then where DPP have demonstrated us in the last 8 years of their ruling, well, they're going to protect Taiwan's integrity of the trade and economy. Where KMT or Ko Wen-je just doesn't seem to have a set of answers. They say we can talk to China. That's one thing they keep saying. Couldn't go to this next one question. What do you want to talk to China about? So to me, this election is as puzzling as as it is clear. I mean, we almost know already today who's going to get elected. It's going to be the vice president, because at least he has an answer. So how can a presidential candidate do not address the elephant in the room, the danger we're all facing? And then can they sell a platform that doesn't address that and get the vote? I haven't seen any success in that in the past 20 years here in Taiwan. So,
well, I mean, I think even among panelists of lawyers that there's not a universal approval, there's not a universal agreement on this. Like some are just kind of like lukewarm about
don't
it.
want to talk about it because they don't have a clear answer. So since they don't have a clear platform, they know they don't have a clear platform. Going into the second question will simply just embarrass the candidates. And that's the kind of presidential election we're waiting for now.